Yeah. Romans 12, 4 through 5 says, "For as in one body we are many members, and not all the members have the same function, so we who are many are one body in Christ, and individually we are all members of it." And that's kind of a life scripture for me, not just in my work in, what?
Gotcha. Maybe you do need 3.
Maybe I need 3? Hey.
He got you turned on.
Yeah, he turned me on. That's...
I'll be here all day.
Yeah. Oh, that was so messed up. Now I'm trying to focus again. Yeah. Yeah. There was a speaker hole that I was asked to fill last night, so I was trying to put some stuff together for this morning, so we'll see how it goes. So that just threw me off, a little grabby. But understanding that we're all different, but we're all supposed to be different together in one body. Different, but different together. We're not all meant to be the same. We're not all supposed to be the same. We're supposed to be different. We're created that way. We're purposed to be different. We're supposed to be different, though, together. And the discovery of those differences is the discovery of who we are in the body of Christ. And I have a unique difference that I rarely talk about, and some of you that may have attended Exploration heard me speak about it there, but I don't talk about it often. This is probably the 3rd time in public that I've ever said it. But about 12 years ago, I was diagnosed with Autism Spectrum Disorder, ASD. And for those of you that know me and have heard that for the first time, might be thinking, that explains a lot. When I heard it for the first time, I thought back on my life and said, yeah, that explains so much. It explains a lot. Some of you might be thinking that it can't be true. It can't be true. He's just way too cute to have autism. But it's true. I'm telling you, it's true. It's true. Someone actually, my oldest daughter has autism, and someone actually told her, we don't think that she has autism. She's too cute. I thought, you are kidding me. You're kidding me. Yeah. So it's true. Apparently, good-looking people cannot have autism. Now, but autism has a stigma to it, which is why I don't really talk about it a lot. It has a negative stigma that goes along with it, and I wondered a lot, will my boss think I'm smart enough to do my job if he knew? Or will my friends think I'm incompetent? Will my peers think I'm not good enough? Will the churches that I serve think I'm too broken to be there? And many people think autism looks like one thing, but it doesn't. Autism is considered a spectrum disorder. It's because it presents differently in everyone. And some are lower functioning and some are higher functioning. Some can't communicate at all, and some communicate really well. Some are really physically awkward. Some play professional sports. Some really love math and science. That's their niche. Others love music and art. So I wanted to give you just a glimpse of how it plays out in my life, because people with autism aren't just in your pews. Remember that people that have ASD are some of your peers who might be staying very quiet. Some of them are your supervisors. So just a glimpse of what it can look like. A common trait in a lot of people that have ASD is social skills deficit, which can be a lot of fun sometimes, at least for my wife. She likes to, anyway. And it shows up greater in some people than others. Social interactions that might be intuitive for you are not as intuitive as they are for me. This is, just to give you an example, this is what a normal conversation might look like. If you guys just stand up and just face them, both of you, because a conversation with two people, unless, well, I mean, some people talk to themselves. See, they're smiling and it's happy and it's great, and this is what normal social interaction looks like. Yeah, you can sit down. The social interaction for me looks much different. It looks like a flow chart that's really messed up and disturbing. It's very, very awkward. The social interaction for me it's a memorized set of societal standards. It's memorized rules. It's a collection of if this, then that kind of work. And you have to memorize all of that. And my wife is neurotypical. Neurotypical means normal. It means normal. But really, who's really normal? But if you think you're normal, there's also a word for that, delusional. Because no one is really normal. But if you're talking with my wife and you're having a conversation, she's losing herself in your story, and she's engaged, and she's actively listening, and she's connecting, and just getting energy from it because she wants to be there with you and share this experience. And if you're talking to me, I'm still relatively physically close, but I'm breaking down your sentence structure and parsing your word choice, and I'm watching your posture and how are you standing and where are your arms, and are they crossed, and if they're not crossed, are they by your side or in your pocket? What pocket? How are you standing facing me? What angle are you at? And how long have you stood like that? And do you rock or do you not rock? What's your inflection like as you talk? Because your inflection gives me clues on what you're really thinking and where your emotions are. And I'm looking at your face, but I'm hardly ever looking at your eyes, because that doesn't tell me much. Around your eyes does. And so I'm looking around your face. I'm looking at how your wrinkles work together. I'm looking at your lips and the corners of your mouth and how your lips move and which side is higher than the other and how long it stays like that. And what word did I say that made you respond that way? That gives clues for what you're thinking, how your eyebrows move when you talk, or if they don't move at all when you talk, which is sneaky. But I'm paying attention to these little micro expressions because they help me decipher what it is you're thinking and how I need my face to look as you're talking to me. The neurotypicals do this too, but they do it naturally, and it's intuitive. For me, it's work. It's work, which is why you present a lot as an introvert if you have autism. And maybe we're not introverts, it's just exhausting to be around you because every time you approach me, that's what I'm doing. It's like a machine, and you're processing all of those things, and it's tiring. It's tiring. Now, I can have a conversation, and sometimes, every once in a while, I actually want to have the conversation with you. It just requires a lot more of me than it might of you. Think about that as a pastor. My kryptonite is that handshake line in church. Oh my God! It's just hundreds of quick conversations, and it's difficult to keep track of all of that because I see your face, but I don't know who you are. Really, I recognize that I'm supposed to know who you are because I've studied your face before, but I'm not sure what it is we're talking about, and so I run through this file cabinet as you're talking, trying to find the right file, and sometimes the conversation moves too quick, and it's over, and you're gone before I realize what it is we're supposed to be talking about. So a lot of the times, it's conversations with me, or if it's quick, sometimes it's just smoke and mirrors. I'm faking it, knowing this is only going to last like 30 seconds. I can just hang in there, but if you linger, then I'm in trouble, and then I've got to find the right file. And it's happened talking about Vacation Bible School before. Someone came up and said, up to the line, shook my hand, said, you're going to be at the meeting, right? I don't know who you are, and I don't know what you're talking about, so I'm trying to find the meeting. And she said, Vacation Bible School. It's like, we were talking about a meeting. Now you're talking about Vacation Bible School. I'm not sure what we're doing here. And she stopped and she said, I'm asking you about the Vacation Bible School meeting that you scheduled for Thursday. Are you going to be there? It's like, oh, well, yeah. Yeah, now I've got that file. Now I know what you're talking about. We can have an intelligent, in-depth conversation about this. So it's helpful to be prepped, which is why people like me enjoy meeting agendas. And I'm looking around, and my boss's boss is not in the room. Oh, I was so hoping he would hear that. He's notorious for calling meetings and then telling us what they're about when we get there. And that's just not how I'm wired. But which is why people like me enjoy worship bulletins. I know churches are moving away from that because it's cutting edge to kind of be flowy. But if you're just flowy and I don't have a schedule in front of me, I don't know when this is going to end. I don't know how long I need to put up with this. I don't know how long I need to wait for that. I want a worship bulletin, and I really need you to follow it. So when you don't follow it, it's like, what's the point? What's the point? If you're not going to follow it, then just don't give it to me. And if there's no schedule, tell me there's no schedule, because that's a schedule. Tell us ahead of time what the purpose of something is, because it helps us have the right files open. Don't just call a meeting and want to talk about kind of the future of the General Board of Higher Education and Ministry. And when we get there, it's actually a budget meeting, because I'm not mentally prepared for that. If you tell me ahead of time, we're solid, and I can be good. So where did I learn all these rules? Oh, they have social skills groups today, which are fantastic. When I was younger, they didn't. So I learned all of my social skills through soap operas and Lifetime TV for women, and through many awkward conversations, laughing when someone was in pain and seeing that go wrong, or walking away from a conversation when I thought it was over, but it wasn't. Even last night, having a conversation at a table, and I thought it was done, and I was pretty sure it was done, and I turned around and I walked away and realized, I didn't say thank you. I didn't end the conversation right, and turned around and went back to the table and said thank you for it was the conversation. I really appreciated that, and then walked off. I skipped a step. So just a couple of fun life lessons. My IQ is 168. I'm not stupid, regardless of what my wife says. She'll tell you. She tells me often, she says, "Sweetie, I love you. I love you, and you are brilliant. But as far as common sense goes, you are an idiot. You're an idiot." I've been lost driving home before, and had to call her from a parking lot to walk me through how to get back to our house. And you'd think, well, that makes sense. I mean, you just moved there a couple of weeks earlier. No, we had lived there for 3 years. And I just got lost. I took a wrong turn and just couldn't put it back together. I nearly missed the birth of our first child because the nurse said, I asked, can I go get something to eat? And she said, yeah, you can grab something to eat. So I left the hospital and went to McDonald's and the bank, and then came back with 5 minutes to spare. Yeah, so I still made it back. The nurse meant to the vending machine. I didn't understand what the expectations were, so I walked out. After we had been married for about a month, I was fussed at by my wife because she found that the lint filter on the dryer, I had not been cleaning it out. Because the lint filter on the dryer was not at the same place the lint filter on the dryer was when I was doing laundry back home. So I figured this is one of those new like self-cleaning things. So there's no lint filter. And she didn't laugh when I told her that. But my strengths are just noticing patterns and processes and connections and cause and effect scenarios and system dynamics. And you can see how those kinds of gifts would play well in a general agency. And how it can make for just a comedy routine in a local church. It's fun. And the speaker yesterday was speaking about how she engages the hungry and the homeless, and I could tell by the tone of her voice and her demeanor and her word choice that she's really leaning into that work, and it's just meaningful and passionate to her, and it brings her a lot of life. But it would be extremely difficult for me to do that, and I'm so grateful that she's doing that, because it's something that she's good at and passionate around, and it allows me to not do that and to do what I'm good at and passionate around, because church doesn't always play out in the same place and look the same. For example, my wife is a preacher's wife, and she knows that, but she's not the typical preacher's wife. She doesn't answer phones at a church. She can't play the piano. She drops our kids off at VBS, but she doesn't lead anything there. Sometimes she doesn't even stop the car. She'll just open the door and just... But she doesn't participate in the life of the church that way. My wife is a social worker, a therapist, and the stats on people who have autism that marry therapists is really interesting to look into. Check that out. It saves me a ton of money, but she runs a nonprofit surfing event that partners kids that have Autism Spectrum Disorder with surfers and therapists, and they go surfing on the Outer Banks. North Carolina, it's the Barrier Islands off the coast. And it is a blast. It's a blast. And they go every year in August. You can look it up online, surfingforautism.org. And I get to write the HTML and code for the website, which is my gift. I'm not on the people side of it. I do get to volunteer, which is a lot of fun, because I grew up surfing, and so now I get to participate in something she's passionate about. But how it began was really interesting. My wife had this idea of doing this, and she knew all the therapists and knew all kind of the infrastructure that needed to happen. She didn't know any surfers. So she mentioned it to one of her friends one day, and they said, you need to talk to this guy, Mark Slagle, who's a surfer in town. And so she calls Mark, and they have coffee, and she said, I heard you had an idea about a surfing event. And he said, yeah, I was talking to my pastor just the other day. I want to have a surfing event with kids that have autism. And I know all of these surfers, but I don't know any therapists. It was a God thing. They put this stuff together, and what's really fun is watching surfers try to organize anything. The idea for the first year, according to the surfers, was we're just going to put a bunch of kids on the beach. And, we'll take some out, we'll bring some back in, we'll just take turns, it'll be awesome. It's like, dude, you have no idea how this works. We want schedules, a routine. I need to know on the beach, when is my turn, when is it over? So they got all of that worked out. But the time you spend with these kids is amazing. I just wanted to tell you a couple of stories. There was one kid whose name I'm going to make up, Steve. We went out surfing, and he wasn't very verbal, didn't speak a lot. And so we go out into the water, and the parents are all on the beach, and they're all cheering for these kids. And one of the things the parents get to do are make signs and things for the kids. So you're sitting out in the lineup on the board, and you're standing there with these kids, and you look on the beach, and there's probably 50, 60 parents per heat that are out there with all these signs like, go, go, yeah, we love you, or whatever it is they want to put on the signs, and they're screaming and yelling because they're all screaming for their kids, and there are probably 30 kids in the water at one time. And I'm sitting on the kid's sitting on the board, I'm standing beside him, and he leaned over to me and he said, do you hear that noise? And I said, yeah, it's pretty loud. And he said, they're all screaming for me. He doesn't speak that often. And I get choked up every time I think about it. It's so powerful. He comes back every year. He's such a cool little kid. There's another boy who I was partnered with a couple of years ago, and we started to go out into the water. He didn't want to surf, didn't want to get on the board, but wanted to go in the water, but wasn't going to surf. So my partner surfer just said, I'm going to go do something else. you can sit out in the water with him. So we stood out in the water with his life jacket on, and we bobbed around in the water for an hour as I listened to him ask questions and tell stories about Batman villains. I mean, not new Batman villains, old school Batman villains, like Adam West Batman villains. And I thought, this is the worst. This is the worst. It's a surfing event, it's not Comic-Con. So we come in, and I told his parents, I'm really sorry, we didn't surf at all, you just didn't want to surf. And they said, that's fine, that's fine. They wrote my wife an email later, a couple of days after the event, and they said he's still talking about his time in the water. He loved it. I mean, nothing to do with me, he just loved being in the water, talking about Batman. He said it was the best surfing for autism ever. And we never touched a surfboard. Never. The siblings, though, are not forgotten at these types of events because it's a family type thing. And usually when you're in a family and there's a special needs child, that child gets all of the attention and all of the money and all of the help. So there's a piece of the event where the siblings of the kids on the spectrum, they go fishing on the pier with fishermen. And they go out and they catch all these crazy fish off of this pier. And they love it, have so much fun. And it's one thing that our event offers that other events usually don't. Families who feel like they don't have a place with their kids because of what they're living with are offered one. It's surfing for autism. And there's no judgment. The kids can walk around with big noise-canceling headphones on, and nobody judges because they're all doing it. And I have been known to throw one of those things on and walk around because it just gets loud. The kids have meltdowns because Cheetos aren't in the snack bag this year. And nobody judges when a kid has a full-blown meltdown because the right snacks aren't in the bag. Because, that was my kid last week. Or that could be my kid next week. And nobody judges. Nobody judges when one of the kids decides right before a surfing heat, it's time to streak. Pants down, off he goes. And it wasn't me, it was one of the kids. But we just watched him, and nobody judged because, Easter Sunday, one of my kids did that. Decided it was time to streak, opened the child's Sunday school room door, out she went. Just butt naked, right in front of everybody. So, we all struggle with it. These kids are not broken. These kids are just different. They're different. These kids, one of them knows more about Batman villains than Adam West does. Another speaks several different languages. English just isn't one of them. He spoke Russian to me on the surfboard the whole time one year. One of the kids is a state champion swimmer. He's like 6'5". He's just a gentle giant. The community has really gotten behind this event. The aquarium, the North Carolina Aquarium there has an open house where the kids come in for free and they dim the lights and they get to hang out with the fish and do all kinds of different crazy things. The volunteers say, I go there to help and I'm changed more than I think I help the kids. It's an awareness type thing. They get to see what autism really, really looks like. And school teachers get training because of this, because we take the money that we raise and bring in people to train teachers and make sure autism-related books are in local libraries and that certain types of playground equipment are on the playgrounds. There's a local yogurt shop called Surf and Spoon, and they have slats kind of like these, and the roof not as high, and people come in and they stick money in the ceiling. It's an old tradition for that building, and as everything cools down in the winter and the boards shrink, the money falls out. And they take the money and they give it to Surfing for Autism, and they have autism-related awareness stuff all over the inside of the building. It's amazing. They've given tens of thousands of dollars one quarter at a time to Surfing for Autism. If you ever go to the Outer Banks, you've got to go to Surf and Spoon. It's awesome. It's amazing. The guy that runs it is a professional surfer. His wife's, anyway, it's just great. One thing that's really made a difference, at least for me, one of our volunteers passed away a couple of years ago. He's close to 90 years old. He was a surf legend out there, and they decided to have a paddle out for him, which is a memorial service that surfers do. And one of them said, "Do we have a minister that could do that?" And my wife said, "I mean, we do. And the minister has autism." And we go, so we have this huge paddle out, and it's amazing. We've got clips of it on the website. The Facebook page that's been built is a support place for all of these families throughout the year when they have IEP-related questions or therapist-related questions, and they all get together. Families are changed. The community has been changed. Surfing for Autism was the volunteer organization of the year last year for the Outer Banks. It's a place where people are changed. So remember that we need each other. We desperately need each other. We're all uniquely gifted. We are all uniquely different. We're all designed to be that way by God, but we're all meant to be different, to be passionate differently together, because we all fit together in the same body. We're wired to be different by a creative God. We're wired to be church differently. But sometimes that church happens in a building and other times on a surfboard. So just keep in mind, the greater our spectrum, the greater impact that we can have on the world. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, thanks.